Hey Chelsea, my name is Joe Kahn, and I'll be doing your negative rebuttal today. So I'll start out with a thesis statement, uh, and that is as the negative side. I believe that developing the moon for water uses far too many resources, and here on Earth we have better solutions. Notably, as Jeff had brought up, desalination. So what I want to do is I didn't really notice any structured DAs in Jeff's speeches, but I'll put one together, just sort of a structured DA, and then I'll kind of talk about the counter plan uh, a little bit and the solvency of that. So I want to start with a disadvantaged plan, and you can tagline this resourcefully irresponsible. So the A point right now, the uniqueness is that NASA reports that a space shuttle costs about $1.6 billion, and for a rover, it costs up to $2.5 billion. Now that's NASA's number for their Mars rover, and perhaps a rover on the moon would be less expensive, but not significantly. And why this is important is because the affirmative plan to develop the moon in terms of to be able to get water from it is going to have to include at least one space shuttle, multiple rovers, and that's like just scratching the surface. So these are the numbers. Just for like the absolute minimum, it's going to cost $4 billion for a space shuttle. Excuse me, $5 billion. Oh no, 4 billion for a space shuttle and a rover. So uh, so we know those numbers, but what's also important to realize too when we're talking about the resources that are being used here is that space shuttle launches damage the ozone layer. This puts excessive amounts of heat and carbon emissions into the atmosphere from burning the rocket fuel. So, subpoint B, link, is that the plan is going to have to include rovers, space shuttles, and those space shuttles are going to have to be launched. So the link right here is that the plan is going to be costing at a very minimum $4 billion, and if at $4 billion there won't be any solvency, but 4 billion at a minimum, and it's going to have to include launches, which are going to hurt our ozone layer. So looking to the C point, the internal links. First, we're going to see a decrease in investment in renewable water technologies. So these are things like desalination. These are things like uh, dams. These are things like treatment facilities. Um, and so the second internal link are budget cuts elsewhere for NASA, and likely from their climate change division. So their climate change division was one of the most recently added parts to NASA, and what we're likely to see is that the government has been very willing to cut NASA's budget, and they've done that. And the newest addition to NASA's budget has been their climate division that you can access at climate.nasa.gov, and this is going to be the most likely to be cut because usually it's the last item to be added onto a budget is going to be the first item to be taken off of a budget. So if they're spending $4 billion, they're going to get water from the moon. They're going to be cutting NASA's climate change division. The third internal link is going to degrade the ozone layer. D point impacts. First, you're going to see a decrease in the amount of jobs, specifically in the water tech industry. So this is going to be really harmful because it's like in the technology industry that we should be really looking into and really trying to find jobs for. These jobs are going to leave the industry as people start to think that we're going to be getting all of our water from the moon. The next impact is a decrease in the efficacy of water technology, right? Like if there's less investment in water technology, then it's not going to work as well, which is going to be really harmful. It's going to make it so that the water tech here on Earth maybe isn't the most useful, and it's going to make us then dependable on going, or it's going to make us dependent on going out of our own environment. The fourth impact is an increase in climate change. because of the massive heating of Earth's surface in the absence of the ozone layer. So the ultraviolet light will be able to get right through to the Earth's surface, heat up the Earth, and that will be very damaging. Now let's get to counterplan observation 2 of desalination. And I know when Jeff brought it up, he said desalination and sewage treatment, but he also said like mainly focusing on desalination. So that's what I'm going to do. So the A point is really I just want to focus on the solvency here, why this solves better. According to Discovery.com on May 8th, 2015, they have an article titled California Opens Up the Floodgates for Desalination. And this is about how California is doing this, and it's going to work well. Also, Jeff brought up the example of Israel, how they're a very desert type environment, yet they've been able to master desalination, and they have water now for their entire country, and they even export it to others. Next, we see that the cost of desalination has been plummeting in the last 20 years, according to water.nevada.gov, and they've talked about this is due to floating desalination plants, which are a lot more cost effective. You can build them as needed, so we don't have to invest $4 billion just to start. We can just build these plants as needed. As far as the drought, there's immediate solvency because these treatment plants would function immediately, as opposed to getting water from the moon. There really is no timeline. As far as our environment, it's better than burning literal tons of rocket fuel while damaging the ozone layer. It'll also mean less dams, right? Dams are harmful to ecosystems and water-based species, and if we have desalination plants, we won't need them. And ultimately, to respond to the chemicals about that these plants might produce, this water is cleared by civil water agencies as safe to drink. In many cases, it's cleaner than tap. So in conclusion, and sorry for going a little over time, but we need to pick the plan that is cost effective, helps solve the drought crisis immediately, and is better for the environment. Only the neg can uphold that burden. Judge, going out of this world to vote for the opposition worsens our environment here on Earth without any concrete benefits or immediate solvency. On the other hand, a vote for neg keeps our Earth green, it's fiscally responsible, it's doable, and is the only plan that will help solve our water shortage now.